Those online, are you able to hear me okay? Can I get a thumbs up?
I got a lot of heads nodding. Very good.
Okay.
Thumbs up.
Okay,
Maybe I'll start again, Martina, if that's okay.
thank you, sir.
So I want to welcome everyone to the MWPA Board of Directors meeting for December 15th. We're meeting both in person in our conference room and virtually. Some of our directors are online and some are here in person. And want to welcome Simon Dunn, who is the alternate from Salinas Fire District today to the meeting, and would call on Martina to please start the recording.
Recording is in progress, sir.
Could you please announce to the public how they can participate in today's meeting?
Absolutely. For those joining us by phone, please use *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If you're joining us virtually, to raise your hand during items in public comment, you will raise your hand in the reactions.
Thank you, Martina. And I remind the public and the board will be doing roll call votes today because we are meeting both virtually and in person. So could we do the roll call, please, Martina?
Absolutely. Starting with Fairfax,
Here.
Novato,
Here.
Larkspur,
Here.
Muir Beach, Sleepy Hollow,
Here.
Kentfield,
Here.
Southern Marin,
Here.
San Rafael,
Here.
Stinson Beach,
Here.
Marin Wood,
Here.
Bolinas,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
Mill Valley,
Here.
Corte Madera, San Anselmo,
Here.
Inverness, and County of Marin.
County Marin is present. I believe we have a quorum, and Catherine Donahue is here. Did she? There she is. Thank you. Third item on the agenda is adjustments to the agenda. Does anyone online or in the boardroom want to make adjustments to the agenda? Seeing no one raising their hand, we'll move on to item 4, which is open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the Board of Directors this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of this board. Please be advised that pursuant to the government code, the board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments should be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Please silence your cell phone during the meeting and mute your microphones when not speaking. We'll first call for public comments in the conference room today. So anyone in the conference room, there's a microphone by Mark Brown if you'd wish to make comments, public comments at this point. Everyone's shy back there. Thank you. So we'll move to the public now online. Martina, anyone online that would like to speak to the board today?
If there are any members of the public joining us virtually today or by phone who would like to speak on the open time for public expression item, please raise your hand in the reactions. And if you're joining us by phone, press *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute yourself. And sir, we do not have any hands for public comment.
And thank you. Then we'll move on to item 5, which is the executive officer's report. Mark?
Good afternoon, President Rodoni, board members, both present. That's the first time I got to say that. And remote. So excited that we have our first in-person public meeting of the MWPA. That's 2.5 years after the initiation of the MWPA. And Director McMillan and I were able to have a conversation before this meeting. And I agree with her. I think we should take the opportunity to reflect what this organization, what this board, what our member agencies have been able to accomplish in 2.5 years through all remote and virtual working, with some increase in in-person ad hoc meetings or staff working with each other. But it's absolutely amazing that we're able to persevere through the challenges of COVID. And remember, COVID was a lockdown only for a month when the MWPA started. So there was a lot of adversity for the MWPA to get through. And before I did my screen share, I wanted to acknowledge that And just reiterate what I've been saying from day one, the strength of the MWPA is the strength of its member agencies. And we have amazing member agencies and we have amazing staff that works for those member agencies. With that, I'll start my screen share. I think it's going to be relatively short. We will have a couple little videos that we're going to show after the screen share is over that are listed here in my report. But recent fires and fire weather, I'll just say, thank you for the rain. It's been statewide and fire behavior has reacted appropriately to that rain. I'll just leave it at that. As you know, as you see, and we mentioned, we are here in our board chambers for this first time. I think it's working out pretty well for our first use, but we do have some improvements in mind. So I think each time you guys come here for a meeting, you will see incremental improvements to the space. We've also had a lot of great luck having some of our public safety partners using this space. The picture here is from last week. The fire prevention officers hosted a meeting of UL Laboratories, talking about some of the innovations that are available. And then the fire prevention officers used the space again today for their annual planning meeting. And one of our objectives was to be able to bring our member agencies into the building so we can have some face-to-face conversations, because you know how important those are. And because of having the right people in the room, I was able to have a little discreet conversation and iron out about 3 different issues that normally wouldn't have been available for me to iron out that easy, but they were there. And it was easy to have that nice, discreet conversation. It was awesome. And then I'm going to point out Bruce Goins, our inaugural president for 2 years, carrying that burden of helping the MWPA grow. And we nominated him for board leadership through the Center for Volunteer and Nonprofit Leadership. That award ceremony will be on January 12th. We already have a table filled with 10. But if any of the other board members who I haven't been able to contact with, if you would like to attend as well, please let me know by the next couple of days, and we will get you a seat at that table as well. There's some stiff competition, but obviously we think Bruce is the right guy. On the CVNL front, though, we do have what I think is an interesting opportunity. They reached out to us and asked how they can support us through their volunteer efforts. And the first item that we are going to explore is to connect CVNL to the Fire Foundry. And as the Fire Foundry is working on direct assistance projects at private residences, and it's, you know, a lot of it's like pulling juniper, removing bamboo. It's stuff that's been identified in the DSI reports. CVNL would love the opportunity to pair their volunteers with the Fire Foundry and have them work side by side on those projects. So Mimi from the Fire Foundry is connected with CVNL now to work that out. The next picture down that you see, not with Todd Lando in it, is that we had just a really productive offsite retreat for the MWPA staff and key contractors. We call them contractors, but we really feel like they're ours. It was out at the Point Reyes National Seashore Bear Valley Visitor Center in the Red Barn. It was a nice location for us to disconnect and be able to focus on what we really wanted to focus on. And the goal of that was, how does MWPA staff support the execution of our core projects? So basically, we are working through a strategic plan for staff to support the MWPA strategic plan. So we have our core projects that go towards the MWPA strategic plan. And then we have support projects, and that's what staff is doing to make sure all those projects can come into alignment. Excellent work day. We had a lot of productivity. I'm sure everyone in this room and remotely have attended many retreats. And to maintain focus and attention for the entire day is often difficult. And that was one of the things our facilitators pointed out, that all of our staff was fully engaged the entire day. And one of the pitfalls of retreats, though, is sometimes there's a lot said at the retreat. And then once the retreat's over, it all gets forgotten. We do have a follow-up meeting to work on action items that we identified Monday. So we are not going to let that momentum go away. We're going to continue to work on those items. We are continuing our partnership with OneTAM and the Regional Forest and Fire Capacity Program and the development of our regional priority plan. I asked Danny Franco when he felt there would be a good time for him to present on the regional priority plan. He's already presented on the forest health strategy to your board approximately a year ago. He wants to refine the regional priority plan a little bit more and present it to the OneTAM partners and then come to the board. So we're not quite ready for that, but he did prepare a statement for me. In developing our regional forest and fire capacity funded Marin Regional Forest Health Strategy, the Parks Conservancy and the OneTAM Collaborative are working to articulate regional priorities based on analysis conducted as part of the Forest Health Strategy. In partnership with the MWPA, the list of regional priorities and supporting documentation will provide a high-level overview of priority treatment areas, forest types, overall treatment approach, compliance and implementation pathway, and nexus to existing plans such as the MWPA work plan and the 2020 CWPP. Those all get bundled up as part of our regional priority plan. So we can go after a block grant with matching funding where available and start executing those projects that are in that larger forest health space. And before I go to the Did You Know piece, because that's where we're going to have to shut down my screen share and Marin TV is going to help me with some videos. A quick update on IBHS. We continue that momentum. We just had a meeting with IBHS last week. I think they're as excited about the partnership as I am, which is really positive for us. We've identified up to 8 properties that we would have as part of our initial beta test. We're going through the process of getting the permission from those property owners to share their DSpace data with IBHS, and then we'll transmit that data over to IBHS. And we all feel confident that we're on a path to be able to have an agreement in place in May. And we described also our training outline, and they're very supportive of that training outline. And the last thing is that I wanted to mention that FireSafe Marin has put together a fantastic series of videos, 5 videos of their 20 seconds in length or so about what the MWPA has been doing for the residents here in Marin. It was first note on their FireSafe Marin newsletter. So if you have that newsletter, you can click through those series. They also put the 1-page ad that they had worked with us to put in the IJ in that newsletter. And I'll stop my screen share so we can see Todd Lando in a couple of different videos describing what we've been doing for the public.
Did you know that the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority awarded more than $500,000 in homeowner grants this year alone?
This weird new tool is quickly becoming.
We did not make that weird new tool.
And those embers would be coming down in the wind. And
Did you know that the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority completed nearly 34,000 defensible space inspections?
I think through our technical bugs, you're able to see the flavor of those videos, but there's short little snippets designed to be able to catch people's attention and deliver a vital bullet point to our members of the public. And with that, I'll take any questions from the board.
Thank you, Mark. So we'll go to questions from the board in the conference room first. Catherine, don't forget to turn
Are
on your
those
mic.
available to us? How do we, for example, have a Southern Marin board meeting and show those?
2 things, 2 routes. 2 routes. We'll include the link for those videos in the executive report that will be coming out within the next couple of days. Second of all, if you go to FireSafe Marin's news, our website, click on newsletter, the links for them all are all there.
Thank you. Anyone else here? Bruce?
Yeah, Mark, thanks for a great report. I'm interested in what documentation we have in place for the IBHE partnership to date. And a little bit more information. I've been approached, the Woody Biomass Work Group, Bill Cole, Larry, and others here have been approached by Representative Cal Fire. They want to test out a beta test, a program to track homeowner compliance with defensible space and hazard mitigation, and then interface with the insurance industry to verify compliance with defensible space work. And the parallels are a little scary to me. So what I'd like to do is to meet with you and have a conversation so we can compare some notes and to see how these two efforts might be brought together as opposed to work. They're clearly working parallel right now. And this is from the state, California Natural Resource Agency from the very top. So it's a little disconcerting that we have multiple efforts going concurrently. Let's try to bring them together.
Absolutely. We'll get together.
Thank you, Bruce. Any other questions here from board members in the conference room? Seeing none, we'll go to the online members. Anyone online have a question of Mark Brown?
If there are any members of the public joining us by phone who would wish to speak on the executive officer's report, please press *9 to raise your hand. If you're joining us virtually, please raise your hand in the reactions. And sir, we do not have any hands for public comment.
Thank you. And now we'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion. No action is required on this item. See no one here in the conference room. Anyone online? No one online. So we'll move forward then to item number 6, which is the consent calendar. The opportunity for public comment on the consent calendar items will occur prior to the board's discussion of the consent calendar. The board may approve the entire consent calendar with one action. In the alternative, items on the consent calendar may be removed by any board member, staff, or staff member for separate discussion and vote. I'll now take public comment on the consent calendar. Martina?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the consent item, please raise your hand in the reactions. And if you're joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. And sir, we do not have any hands for public comment.
Anyone in the board chamber or the conference room wish to speak on this item? Thank you. So we're going to bring it back to the board now. Would any board members like to remove an item on the consent calendar? Barbara, I see your hand up. Would you like to pull something?
Yes, please. Thank you. I don't want to remove something, but I'm hoping under the item for the cooperative agreement, 6F, I think it's a great idea, and I provided these questions to Mark prior, but I'm not sure I totally understood. My understanding, Measure A, 25% is supposed to be spent on wildfire prevention. And in reading the cooperative agreement, it looked as if there was no real commitment specifically of spending Measure A funds on those joint projects. And I'm not talking about the individual projects that Parks and Open Space would take up, but the ones that we jointly do. There's a mention of may include some money and talking about monthly payments. So it's a little unclear to me that there will be some allocation of Measure A money for those joint projects that occur on open space and park land. And also it looked like most of the heavy lifting on those projects would be MWPA staff, all the environmental work, etc. And so it seemed a little lopsided to me. So I'm wondering if Mark can speak to that. I think it's great, but I'm just concerned that more is being put on Measure C money, as well as our staff that have limited bandwidth with all the work that they're taking on. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else want anything pulled on the consent calendar? Seeing none, let's pull item F. I'd like to move forward with A through E. Can I have a motion on A through E of the consent calendar, please?
I'll make
I'd like to move we move forward with A through E of the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, thank you. That was Steve Burdo, and I had a motion here by Rachel Kirsch in the conference room. Steve, would you like to second that?
Yes.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Kirsch, second by Burdo to move forward with the consent calendar A through E. We do a roll call, please.
Director Dunn,
Yes.
Director Burke,
Yes.
Director Kurtz,
Yes.
Director Paulson,
Yes.
Director Donahue,
Yes.
Director Evergettis,
Aye.
Director Shea,
Aye.
Director Jeschke,
Aye.
Director Goins,
Aye.
Director Finn,
Aye.
Director Hilliard,
Aye.
Director White,
Aye.
Director Ravasio, Director Kohler,
Yes.
Director Burdo,
Aye.
Director McMillan,
Yes.
President Rodoni.
Yes, thank you. I believe that carries. So now let's go to consent item F. And Mark, would you like to respond to those comments by Director Kohler, please?
You bet. I'm going to start it off and we'll fill in any gaps that I may leave. And then Megan will come and bat cleanup for us. I'm still can't get out of baseball. Sorry. So that cooperative agreement is actually between three entities: Marin County Parks, Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, and the Marin County Fire Department. And it really is driven for the projects that MWPA member agencies are proposing on Marin County Parks lands that will be above and beyond the regular plan of work for Marin County Parks through their Measure A expenditures. So for the project planning, since it is a MWPA proposed project, it would be MWPA that takes the lead in scoping that project, as we do now prior to the Measure A funds being available. However, Marin County Parks reserves the right to do their own compliance now, and they are continuing, which is appropriate, and they're continuing to reserve the right to do their own compliance. So if it's a MWPA proposed project, it may be solely funded by Measure C. It may be jointly funded by Measure C and Measure A. It may or may not be implemented by the Marin County Fire Department's fire crew or fire foundry. That's where the payment aspect of that contract come in, is it established the process for Marin County Parks and or MWPA to pay for Marin County Fire's work on those lands. And the reason why, if there are no, is there's no mention of Measure A funded projects in that contract, is quite frankly, Marin County Parks has no requirement to enter an agreement with the MWPA to perform projects on their lands with their revenue. And Ann, if there's
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt, but just to point out, I wasn't presuming that Marin County Open Space and Parks would enter into an agreement with us for projects that are solely theirs. So I hope that's not a misunderstanding. I was really just asking about the joint projects. Thank you.
Okay. Ann, would you like to comment? And then Megan?
Sure. Yeah, we work regularly with Marin County Park staff. We meet monthly. We have a standing meeting in order to coordinate. And this is just a framework to make sure that we are coordinating, to commit to coordinating based on our shared priorities. And some projects that member agencies propose on Marin County Parks and Open Space land may not be the highest of priorities for Marin County Parks staff. And so they would likely just be Measure C funded. And if they're a joint priority, then perhaps we would commingle that funding and we would both contribute financially towards that work. And so this framework just allows for that kind of negotiation and flexibility so that we can plan project by project.
They didn't leave me much to clean up, but what I would say is that in addition, that framework is fairly broad so that it gives us the capacity, which is recognized in the agreement, to enter into specific contracts for each project that we feel will cover sort of the details, and that would include funding levels potentially, and also grant opportunities that where we could leverage Measure A and Measure C monies toward potentially seeking grants jointly, I believe is part of the plan there. And then it sort of sets a time frame for when annual plans will be made. So I think Parks develops a plan for its work once a year, and so do we. So rather than do those in silos, it would allow for deliberate cooperation on those plans. So
Thank you very much. That's
Right,
helpful.
thank you, Barbara. Gabe Paulson, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. And thanks to Barbara for raising the question. I was pretty involved in Measure A and working with Supervisor Rice and Max Corton. And I just wanted to ask, because I don't know if everyone on the board here and the public has read over this 9-page document. It's fairly detailed. But maybe, either Ann or, Dan, you can address a couple things, like where in our work do you think there is overlap? What areas, because we know that open space and what we're covering doesn't necessarily overlap. And also, if you can just speak to the intention of the Measure A language, was that we didn't want consultants, we wanted boots on the ground, and MWPA sort of understands what needs to be done and has been in this business. And I'm wondering to what extent this document will promote efficiency and collaboration and really helping them in the same way 17 member agencies are being helped here. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay? I
Mhm.
can respond to pieces of that. This document just formalizes the process that we've been undergoing already, which is meeting regularly, thinking through joint priorities, meeting well ahead of the work plan development process. So for example, deliberately inviting member agencies to meet with not only county open space, but also state parks, national parks, and other potential partners to make sure we're thinking about ideas together. Some of the ideas that have come up, of course, is broom removal and other non-native removal. So that's a high priority for Marin County Parks, and it also has a big fire benefit. And so we've talked about putting our heads together at the end of each field season to see which areas have been treated and which haven't been treated and which could be priority areas for the next work plan, things like that. So this really just provides, it formalizes the process that we're already undertaking. We're working together on a regular basis, making sure that we're thinking through what their priorities are, where our priorities are and where they overlap, and just committing to coordinating, incorporating their best management practices into our work that overlaps their lands, things like that.
And the only thing I would possibly add to that is that even before the additional Measure A funds were identified, Parks did a great job of sharing with us any fire mitigation projects that they were already planning. And so I anticipate that sharing will only continue, but with a dramatic increase since they have much more funding for that. There had been times where we had proposed projects on Marin County Parks land, and they came back, well, you guys actually don't need to do that. You could take that off your slate. We already have it planned. And so with the close and frequent conversations and coordination, I think we'll have a clear view both directions.
Catherine Donahue, your hand's up.
Yes, am I on?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think this is such an important discussion. We're talking about overlap, and I know that our constituents don't really realize who's doing what MWPA is doing, what out here in the West Marin, what the state parks are doing, what the federals are doing. So I think that a communication plan might be a good strategy, so everyone knows what's doing what. I just heard that there was a meeting last night with the state park, and I didn't even know about it. So Anne has been very good about telling us what's happening with West Marin and Bolinas and Stinson and everything. But I think there needs to be a better collaboration plan for the rest of the entities. Who's meeting, what they're doing, what's the state park doing? What are the feds doing? What's MWPA? What are our local things? And then just put that together in a plan. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions on this item for staff? Seeing none, then we'd like to move forward then with item F. Could I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll move to
Thank
approve.
you, Mark, and second by Rachel. So we have a motion by White, second by Kirsch. Roll call, please.
Director Dunn,
Yes.
Director Burke,
Yes.
Director Kurtz,
Yes.
Director Paulson,
Yes.
Director Donahue,
Aye.
Director Evergettis.
Aye.
Director Shea,
Aye.
Director Jeschke,
Aye.
Director Goins,
Aye.
Director Finn,
Aye.
Director Hilliard,
Aye.
Director White,
Aye.
Director Ravasio, Director Kohler,
Yes.
Director Burdo,
Aye.
Director McMillan,
Aye.
President Rodoni.
Aye. Thank you. I believe that carries. We'll move on to item seven then, which is staff reports. Treasurer's report is the first report. There's Alicia. Welcome, Alicia.
Here I am. Hi, thank you. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. Let's see. So as of this report, we're at 44% through the fiscal year, and total expenditures are at 20%. And you can look at the budget report, and any lines that are higher than where we are through the fiscal year are highlighted in red, as most of you know. But that doesn't necessarily mean they'll go over. It's just a way for us to get a look at where we are at. And the property tax disbursement just came in yesterday, so that will be reflected in next month's packet. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
I'd just like to note for the record that I can't pull this report up on the link in the agenda.
Okay. I thought I did.
Okay.
at one point.
I didn't even see a report. There was no link to a report. Excuse me, President Rodoni, but I just thought there wasn't a physical report this time.
Oh, maybe we can update that link, or I can send it out. Let me know if I can help.
Thank you.
I've been trying to replicate that problem throughout the day, and I'm trying to replicate it right now. And when I go to our website, click on the agenda, and I click on the link, it comes up. So I could individually email it to the board members if that helps.
Okay. Very good. Megan, do you prefer we hold this item over till it's available, or what's your preference? Suggestion?
As far as I can tell, it's available on the public website because I accessed it from home and I'm accessing it now just through the website. So I think we're okay from a public notice.
Thank you very much. So any other questions from the board about the report that you may or may not have seen? Seeing none. Public comments in the conference room, please. I'm going to call this the chamber, if that's okay. I'm not used to conference room, so board chamber, anyone want to?
That is its official
on
name,
this
board
item?
chambers.
All right, anyone online? Martina, want to speak on this item?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the January finance report for MWPA, if you're joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 to unmute yourself. And if you're joining us virtually, please raise your hand in the reactions. And sir, we do not have any hands for public comment on this item.
Thank you. And there's no action required on this, but I'm bringing it back to the board for any further discussion.
Yes, Dennis, I had a quick question, if I may.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, on the only thing that really stands out to me is in the core projects line 6140. the D-Space grants for home hardening. We're 45% or 46% of budget, underspending by 411,000. Wondering if you can speak to that.
That I can actually, that's a great question, because that particular item is all the core projects that are grant related pooled in one. That's not just a JPA wide grant program. For instance, Novato Fire has a grant program that is a core project from Novato. San Rafael Fire has a core project that's grant funded from San Rafael. So that line 6140 is all of those grants put together. If you dig deeper into our spreadsheets, then you can see where it's broken out by individual projects.
So as a follow-up, are we behind?
Actually, we're you'll hear this in the operations committee update. We have expended the JPA wide funds of 500,000, and we have asked the operations committee to look at projects that may not be able to spend all of their funds by the end of the fiscal year, so that we could transfer them from those projects into the grant program, so that we can continue our grant program. We would hate to have our D-Space evaluators go out in April, May, and June and have no grant funding available for the residents. We have identified 100,000 already that we will be coming to the board in January for the authorization to transfer. And again, we've asked the operations committee to reach back to their staff to identify an additional 400,000, with the estimate that if we spent 500,000 in the first half, we're likely to spend 500,000 in the second half.
Great, thank you.
Any other items for discussion? All right, seeing none. Let's move on to B then, the work plan update. Welcome, Ann. Welcome, Director Berto.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen.
You can start it around.
Right.
These look like they're homemade snickerdoodles, right?
Well, we're munching on cookies that just arrived. Hopefully you can see my screen, and hopefully you can hear me as I eat cookies while I
Ann, could
present.
you
No,
just speak a
kidding.
little bit louder?
Sure.
Thank you.
We are busy, and in particular, I want to highlight what we're doing in West Marin. This photo is of our veg management specialist who runs the chipper program and is also helping in the field, Stephen Peters, and he is standing next to some invasive heather in West Marin on the Highway 1 evacuation corridor project in the Muir Beach area. And that project is underway, as you can see. So work is happening next to Highway 1 in an area that has seen a lot of ignitions traditionally, and we are coordinating with Caltrans on encroachment permits so that we can handle the biomass that is getting created through chipper activity along the roadway. We also have a lot of work underway in West Marin for the evacuation route project, mostly in the Inverness area. And this is specifically in very distinct neighborhoods where work has already taken place to coordinate with the residents in that area. That's all part of the West Marin evacuation route project. And that project, I should note that PG&E is also active in that area and also active in the Muir Beach area. So if you see large trees being taken down, that was not MWPA. We do have a new frequently asked questions sheet that's going to be loaded onto our West Marin evacuation route project webpage for anyone interested in learning more. There's a local project in Stinson Beach directly adjacent to their communities that's going to be getting underway soon as well. And that overlaps national park lands. And so we've been working closely with national park staff to get that underway. We also kicked off our public works plan development process. We started working with member agencies in the coastal zone to think through how to better streamline Coastal Act compliance with the Coastal Commission. And we had our first meeting with the Coastal Commission earlier today and had a great discussion, just kind of thinking through what the process is going to look like. So we'll be coordinating with the County of Marin and with other stakeholders in West Marin along the coastal zone who would like to participate in this process. And as a note, State Parks did hold a public meeting last night talking about their own public works plan that they're planning for work within the Tamales Bay State Park. So we've been talking a lot with State Parks to make sure we're all on the same page and supporting each other. We are kicking off our work plan development process, and that means a lot of meetings for the Advisory Technical Committee and the Operations Committee. We started meeting this month in December, and we'll be meeting through April and early May so that we can hit the deadline of approving the work plan and budget by the board in May. We added 2 new non-voting members to the ATC. That's Fire Safe Marin and UC Cooperative Extension. We spent time reviewing the process for work plan and budget development. We spent some time thinking through priorities for the next work plan, and the Operations Committee took action on that. We'll have an update from the Operations Committee as another board item later in the agenda. And in January, the web portal will be back up and running. We spent some time just fine tuning the web portal this time around. The web portal, as a reminder, is a tool to upload project proposals into a database so that member agencies can propose ideas for projects, and we can quickly and more efficiently build the work plan and the spreadsheets and the budget that's needed for that. So we're streamlining that process, so it should be even easier this time around. And the ATC and operations committees will be choosing a new chair and vice chair in January. We are planning another field trip for Southern Marin. That is probably going to be in January of 2023. We were hoping December, but it's taking a while to do the contracting. And so there probably won't be any work on the ground in time for a December meeting. So we're hoping to invite the public out in January to see another project site. The grant program, as Mark mentioned, is very popular and very successful. We have given away a lot of Measure C funds, which is fantastic. So much so that we needed to go to the Operations Committee to think through how to continue funding that effort. And MWPA is moving some funds from the fire camera effort that will not be spent this year and the contingency funds that won't be spent this year into the grant program to keep it going. And we've asked that member agencies think through any extra funds that wouldn't be spent this fiscal year to potentially contribute to the funds as well. Chipper program is winding down for this year. It was a really successful season, a total of 3,307 pickups this year and over 10,000 yards of material removed. These numbers have not changed since last time around. We do not have a vegetation management project on the agenda today, but projects are being implemented, and this is an example of a site for the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break, some before and after images that tell you how much safer these neighborhoods are going to be. And that's it for me. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ann. Questions for Ann from board members? Yes, Bruce.
Hi, Ann. Thanks for a great report. The comment that that we've added 2 non-voting members to the Advisory Technical Committee, including Fire Safe Marin and UCCE, just from a recollection that we have a 2-year agreement with UCCE that has to be coming towards an end. And I guess my question is not to be answered now, but for you to at some point give us an assessment of that partnership and the contributions that's being made by UCCE and the fate of that agreement. Or do we intend to renew it? Do we need to renew it? Or was it intentionally just a 2-year term, short-term commitment? So I'm not looking for an answer, but I'd like a report on that maybe next month.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to look into all of the ongoing programs and partnerships that are part of previous work plans to see if they need to be included in future work plans. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. One more member here in the board chamber, Catherine.
This is a compliment. I am really excited about how many people are receiving grants. We have a ton of people out there doing the work around their own property and gathering their neighbors up to do others. And I want to thank the people in this room who contribute to this through advertising, Fire Safe Marin, and all of you with your organizations. It's working. Beside what we do, the public is really responding to this program. I know because I'm fortunate enough to be one of the people who can sign the checks. So it's honestly, it's just so heartwarming. We're really on a roll with our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. Now we'll go to board members online. Director Kohler.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Anne. And the work is incredible. I'm wondering a couple of things. As we do our work, for example, on the shaded fuel breaks and some of the D-space clearing, evacuation route clearing, I wonder, well, number one, we need to make sure that we're distinguished from PG&E, which most of us know, and Dennis well knows, they're not exactly the environmental stewards as they do their work. And there is great work happening out near me in Fairfax on the greater Ross Valley shaded fuel break. But unfortunately, I don't see signage that talks about who's doing it. And I know what's happening because I'm on this board. I also, Todd Lando's parents live a block from me and I'm friends with them. So I see Todd all the time. And so, you know, for example, there were some guys near me at I live in Canyon Village in Fairfax, and they were here for a week. They did incredible work. They were very polite. They didn't make a mess. It was just wonderful. And on Glen Drive near White Hill School, they did incredible work. But I saw a sign out near Glen Drive about 3 weeks after the work was done. And so I think this sort of emulates what Catherine's been talking about. We need to get the word out that we're doing that work because, first of all, reputationally, and we are environmental stewards, and it's shown the way the work is done and really not disrupting communities. So I know it's extra, and I know you guys are doing great work, and I totally appreciate it, but it would be good if we could do some better signage so people know who's doing the work out there and distinguish ourselves from PG&E, who is not making people happy. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I can respond for a moment. We do have signs, sandwich board signs that go out with the crews, but I agree we could invest in a few more, especially if crews are working in multiple locations. And then with regard to PG&E doing work within project areas, we are keeping track of taking photos of trees that are flagged that it's not our flagging, and just making sure to track that and have record of it.
Thank you. Director Jeske.
Thank you. Basically, I'm would like to reinforce what Barbara had to say about signage. From my perch out here in Muir Beach, right along Highway 1, I can see the great work that's being done. There's been a tremendous amount of material that's been removed, particularly in the above Slide Ranch, where those eucalyptus trees and their debris were a huge menace. And there's really great work being done. But as far as I can tell, there's no signage out here indicating who's performing this work. And this is a busy state highway. Hundreds, maybe thousands of vehicles go through here every day. And I think we desperately need some signage out there explaining who's performing this work and paying for it.
We'll order some more signs. Thank you.
Director Donahue.
Yes, thank you. And again, Anne, I really appreciate all you've been doing. You're like an amazing member of our organization. I specifically appreciate how you've gone and done communication with West Marin. But to follow up on that and to follow up on the overlaps, we really do need to communicate more about our partners, the entities, whether it be the state park or the feds or whatever is going on, or one TAM, et cetera. If we can just put together like a little story page, what is one TAM doing? What are the feds doing? What state park doing? And put that into a little shot of how we're collaborating. I know it's political, I know it's difficult, but I think more information is better than little. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Any further comments, Ann? We'll move to the public and I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Catherine, go ahead. This
Just
is
wanted
for
to make a
questions and
comment.
comments at this point. so.
Okay, so this is about our publicity. We had 2 full-page ads in the IJ on 2 subsequent Sundays. And I'm pretty sure, because I got calls, that people saw that. And it was a congratulations to all of us as constituents of our MWPA. So I think that was a major, really well-placed effort, because not everybody gets all their information online. So that was really good. And I wondered, do you have any kind of feedback other than me telling you that my neighbors called me to say this was great?
I think the item you're talking about was that over Thanksgiving break, or yes, that was a partnership with Fire Safe Marin. So very grateful for their efforts to make that happen.
Thank you, Director Burdo.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on a few things that a few people had said, Catherine, Barbara, and Catherine. With respect to the signage, I mean, there can never be enough signage. So if we need to order some more signs, that's great. I just really, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, I think we really go above and beyond from a communication standpoint as a public agency that's still kind of in its infancy stage, right? When you look at the numbers of the chipper days, the defensible space inspections, the word is getting out. People are taking us up on this more so than we, in a lot of cases, financially have the ability to provide. I think that the one thing I want to remind everybody of is certainly MWPA can do what we can do from a communication standpoint, whether that's, being in the IJ, which again, I think we do a phenomenal job of getting in there, whether it's through earned media stories from the reporters or op-eds that we're submitting and getting our message out there. But we and our agencies are also the big mouthpieces here. And what we did in San Anselmo for the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break was we have our town manager's newsletter, which is very well read. We put it in there. We got a lot of responses. I put it out on my own email list. We all have those. We're all elected officials. So, in addition to the signage, we have to use our ability to communicate and our agency's ability to communicate as well. Because again, I think from a communication standpoint, we've done a phenomenal job. And then beyond that, to Barbara's point, there is a lot of, no matter how much signage you have, there's always going to be a lot of confusion over, is this PG&E? Is this MWPA? And you see it with the same things when they're digging up the road. Is this Marin Water? Is it Ross Valley Sanitary District? The same thing applies there. But I'll say when we had some concerns from a number of our residents, Ann came down with the whole team, did a walkthrough with everybody, satisfied everybody's concerns. I think we're doing a phenomenal job in this sense, not just operationally, but how we're communicating the work we're doing to the public. Certainly we could always do more, but we have to play a role in that as well.
Yeah, Rachel, go ahead.
I'd like to add a couple things. I do agree with Steve that we are the ambassadors in the community to be able to share the information, and the more we can share, or if there's questions or concerns from the community, to direct them to the right people. I do have a question, Ann, on the use of the grants. I think to me, the use of the grants is an indication that people are getting the message of what MWPA is doing and providing. I'm wondering though, if we're collecting some data around the grants so that we can, look at you guys, so that we can have the story of who's receiving the grants, and if as the grants are being used by, some are being distributed directly from the jurisdictions and the MWPA ones, are we able to tie the data pieces together? So in whole. And then the last piece around the communication, and I'll let you jump in on the grant piece, is I think if we take from the resident side, people don't come to me and say, who's doing this work? They want to know that the work is being done.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, we can provide all the details about what other agencies. I'm not sure that's a best use of our resources and time to try to figure out. But if the community is going to want to know that the work's being done and how it's being done, and not necessarily who's doing it, unless there's a problem. And then we can follow up with that, but they want to know that it's being done.
So on the community-based effort compared to our grant, the reason why you guys are chuckling is I did whisper into Ann's ear that we are tracking through SurveyMonkey, which is our grant portal, how much we're spending compared to how much the residents are spending. And this is definitely a wag, maybe a swag. But it's almost a 20% that our spending is 20% of what is happening out there. I just had an opportunity to speak to your lead D-Space evaluators for the city of San Rafael. Did you know that 90% of the people who are opening your reports are taking action? That's amazing. And that's not 90% of the people are taking advantage of the grant. So we're able to track the dollars that are being compared to grants only for the people that are applying for grants. We have no vision, and it would be very difficult to get that vision into what people are paying for on their own. But 90% of the people who have opened your reports are taking action. That's amazing. And then data tracking and knowing if what we are doing is making a difference. Great question, because you get to see a report on our beta test for that metric tracking next month. Thank you for the segue.
I wanted to echo what Steve said in terms of each of us taking advantage of the information that is being provided and disseminating it to our community. So for example, that beautiful annual report came out last month with the nuggets that Mark and staff distilled. And so I was able to provide that to all of my council members. And then at my council meeting, I highlighted relevant portions of the nuggets. So I think each of us needs to also participate in communicating. And I do think it's really important that even though we may think that the public doesn't really care about who's doing the work, we need to continuously cultivate the MWPA in front of the public, because before we all know it, we're going to have to renew this measure. So we need to, it may seem like we're beating a dead horse, but I think we need to have our name out there as much as possible. One thing I was thinking, Anne, I don't know if people do this, but when they're doing all the projects, are they wearing MWPA shirts that designate that they're from MWPA, and to help get the word out?
Yeah, we do have some gear available to folks who are helping manage crews in the field, t-shirts with logos, polos with logos. We are working on actually magnetic logos that can go on the side of trucks, and different materials that will help put our logo out there associated with our work.
Other comments or questions from board members? Seeing none, we're going to go to the public in the chamber for comments on this item. Okay. And then online, Martina, did you check the online for comments?
I did just want to mention, sir, that it looked like Member Donahue had her hand up for quite some time virtually. Did you still have
Director
have a
Donahue, did you have a further comment?
Director?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Sorry about that. Oh, and if there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the current work implementation update, if you're joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. For those joining us virtually, please raise your hand in the reactions. And sir, we do not have any hands for public comment.
Okay, bringing it back to the board for discussion. No action is required. I think everyone's had a pretty good chance to make comments. I would only suggest that we think about giving the grantees a little sign saying this was supported by MWPA grant. We have a lot of members out there using the grant process, so might be something else we can do.
Good idea. Yeah.
All right, moving on to committee reports, Fire Safe Marin. Welcome.
The first one to stand up with the microphone. So I think the report itself is, pretty self-evident. As you notice, they're getting longer, so we're trying to put more data in there so that we be as transparent as possible. I did want to address a little bit the work that we just recently did with the MWPA, the 2 ads that were in the paper. And if you haven't had a chance, it kind of got screwed up, the chance to look at the short videos we did with Todd, those are really getting to what you're talking about the MWPA is not Fire Safe Marin. It's strictly MWPA branded. We cleared this many routes of this. We did this. We gave out this much money in grants. And we've been in discussions. We're going to be doing a lot more of this, which is 100% MWPA branded. Those short videos and all really are a big hit and can be used in a lot of different places. All of this material, of course, is available to the agencies that are out there because, as Director McMillan pointed out, all of you are important in getting that word out too. So look for more of that. We're working really closely with MWPA on this, and you'll see more of it in the future. Just real briefly on the ADAPT campaign, that's been kind of a big deal. We are now at 7 million views, and those are in Marin County. That's not like the United States. 7 million views of that campaign, all the different elements. If you'd like to know more about how we do this, there's going to be a deep dive tomorrow at the Fire Safe Marin board meeting into really how we do this and how we're working with social media and all the things that we've learned ourselves about this. So we're pretty proud of it. You don't just make an ad and put it on TikTok. There's quite a bit more that goes into it. So we're kind of excited about 9 o'clock tomorrow online. Hope you can join us in that. And of course, if there's any questions that you have about the report or what we're doing, I'd be glad to answer them.
I have a question. Given that MWPA is funding the lion's share of Fire Safe Marin, I was wondering if perhaps there should be a tagline, WPA logo somewhere in all of your publications so that we are continuously reminding the public that MWPA is behind you.
That's already there. You can look at anything that we do, the MWPA logos on it.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
we've been doing that since the beginning.
Okay, it didn't make an impression on me, obviously. I'll look again.
Well, it's to be honest, I mean, it's a logo. So, just like the Fire Safe Marin is a logo. So, but we try to do that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
We might have missed something, but that's our intention.
Other questions, Rich, Director Murdo?
Yeah, Rich, 7 million views. You seeing any ad revenue?
Again, you can hear more about it tomorrow, but I'm going to give you just a little anecdote. So when my friends and acquaintances who are not in this world and not really interested in what I do for Fire Safe Marin, everybody I'm talking to in the last month or two, hey, Rich, I saw the ads from Fire Safe Marin the other day. I mean, it's just popping up everywhere it's out there. And we're seeing things like, if you look at our newsletter, our open rate now is 63%, which is kind of unbelievable. And I think it's because the content is getting more interesting all the time. And again, I could bore you to death of where we're going with all this social media stuff, but follow throughs and click rates and all that, they're all going up on this. And
Rich, I can't speak highly enough about the work that, you're doing over there. And I'll just add, if you need somebody with some swag to come in and do a TikTok video for you, I've always got a dance move or two ready to go.
we're always looking to be more entertainment value is the only way you're going to get eyes on all this stuff. So we'll take you up on that.
How about food?
What was it? I missed that last one.
How about food?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we'll put that in with the mix. Where you're going to see another campaign coming up where click rates are important. So you don't just see the ad, but you want them to take action. We're about to start a new thing that's going to really focus on that you'll be noticing in between some of the video productions and all. So we're doing a lot of things and there's a lot of new stuff coming up, which we'll talk about at our meeting tomorrow.
Thank you, Rich. Other questions, Rich? Seeing no further hands, we'll go to the public now. Any comments from the public on this item?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the Fire Safe Marin report, please, if you're joining us by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. For those joining us virtually, please raise your hand in the reactions. And sir, we did not have any public comments.
Any comments in the chamber? Seeing none, we'll move to back to the board for final thoughts. No action is required. Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. So I've seen some of your ads on the news. The foundation vent one is a particularly good one, so thank you. Advisory Technical Committee report.
Thank you. I'll be providing that update on behalf of the Advisory Technical Committee. The committee started meeting December 7th. It's the first Wednesday of each month through April. And at this meeting, this was a kind of an introductory meeting to get the ball rolling. We added our 2 new ATC members who are non-voting at-large members, as I mentioned previously. And we discussed the bulk of the time, really the process that we're going to take this year. And it's going to be very similar to last year's process. We are moving up some of the due dates a little earlier in the process to make sure we have all our ducks in a row for the operations committee to finalize the budget and move it on to the board in May. We're going to be proposing and uploading our own JPA-wide proposals earlier in the process, hopefully by March 1st. That's when the initial JPA-wide proposals are due. Mid-March is when the initial drafts for member agency proposals are due. And the end of March is when we really want to have those buttoned up so that the operations committee can do its work to finalize the budget. And I'll leave it there. I'll be reporting for the operations committee in a moment.
Thank you, Ann. Questions of Ann from board members? Okay, seeing none. Any questions? Sorry, we'll go to comments from the public then.
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the Advisory Technical Committee report, please raise your hand in the reactions if you're joining us virtually. If you're joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. And sir, we do not have any public comments.
Great, thank you. Any comments in the chamber? Doesn't look like it. We'll bring you back to the board for any further thoughts. See none, we'll move to the next item, Operations Committee.
Great, thank you. Chief White wasn't able to stay on long enough to present this item this afternoon. So I'm going to present on his behalf. The Operations Committee met for the first time on December 14th and took on some pretty heady topics. One was the overall timeline of work plan development, as I mentioned previously. But also one of the items we discussed was a proposal to address funding across the zones for efforts and regions that require additional assistance. So such as vegetation management in West Marin. And according to the JPA language, 80% of the revenue generated within a zone for core projects will be spent within that zone, averaged over a 5-year period. However, there is flexibility to spend the other additional 20% according to need. The proposed process moving forward is for each zone to budget according to the 80% threshold for their zone. This provides for a 20% priority funding pool. The Operations Committee suggested that the ATC could make recommendations on how to allocate that 20% priority funding pool each fiscal year based on what projects are proposed for inclusion in the work plan. So those discussions would take place during the development of the work plan. Third, the Operations Committee voted to continue last year's overall approach to proposal development, the overall strategy, and that included the house out approach, continuing that as the overarching strategy. Increasing funding and variety of resident grant programs, prioritizing shaded fuel breaks that are adjacent to communities, partnering with insurance companies and the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, IBHS, to help avoid insurance cancellations, and increasing public education, particularly to new audiences. And then finally, the Ops Committee also voted to support the Resident Home Hardening and Defensible Space Grant Program by having MWPA move some funds, 100,000 from certain budget items into the grant program for the immediate future. And then also check back with member agency staff to discuss whether there were any unspent funds that could contribute towards the grant program for the rest of the fiscal year. So a lot of topics discussed at that first December Operations Committee meeting, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ann. Board members, questions of Ann? Yes, Rachel. Go ahead.
Anne, I'm sorry, can you provide not maybe now, or maybe just in terms of that discussion, where the discussion landed with the changes of that 20% conversation? Is that going to come back to the committee to discuss, or is that, feel like we need to have a little bit more understanding, like what would be, does it come back to the board as a discussion item first, or does it go back? Where does it land?
I'll learn how to push buttons. The first round will be through the ATC to proposed prioritized projects for that priority pool. Then ops would give the final recommendation, say, all right, we agree or we don't agree. These are the projects that should be priority. These are projects that fell underneath the line, and then they'll forward that to the board of directors as a recommendation.
So those are the prioritized projects. I was thinking more the change of process around the 20%, the 80%, 20%. Wasn't that a different, is that a separate item?
That process has never really been, the fact that we were matching revenue with expenditures, that was never encoded in any type of policy or anything. It was just practice. So that's why we're just adjusting our practice.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Bruce, yes.
Yeah, just a quick question, Mark. I have not attended an ATC or an ops meeting in a long time, but my question is, what is their decision-making process? Is it discussion and decision by consensus, or is there an alternate decision-making model that they currently use? Thank you.
They have the same voting requirements as the board of directors.
Julie, go ahead.
And I really enjoyed hearing those priorities that the Ops Committee has come up with, and I'm wondering if you could circulate those to us. It struck me that they're so clear, and they're further refinements of what the priorities have been in the last 2 years, but it seems like they're becoming more targeted and more refined. So that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, Mark?
I was just going to say, I'll include that as part of the executive report, the new monthly executive
Oh,
report.
Awesome. Thank
Terrific.
you.
Yep. Anyone else? Questions of staff? All right, we'll go to the public for public comment in the chambers first, please. Seeing none. Anyone online?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the Operations Committee report, please press *9 if you're joining us by phone, and raise your hand in the reactions if you're joining us virtually. And sir, we have no hands.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to item 9 now, informational items. In addition to the items listed on the agenda, the staff have any additional items for the board today?
We do not.
The following items are for the board and the public's reference and do not require a staff report or any action by the board. It consists of the acknowledgement of the Finance Committee, acknowledgement of the Citizens Oversight Committee, and the receive amicus brief details. Any questions on those items from board members? Bruce.
I have one question on item 9C. Can we get an outline of the timing associated with these proceedings? We're currently in our our planning process for the coming year, but timing is important. And I do think that this has very serious consequences depending upon the ruling for our viability and just how far we can go with the funding that we have. But there's no sense as far as timing in it. So please.
Sure. We have Sabrina Teller with Remy Moose Manley joining us today to help with this discussion, and she can cover the overall timing and or at least what we know about the timing and our involvement. Sabrina.
Sure. I'm sorry, I may have missed a little bit of Member Goins' questions because I was being promoted as a panelist, but my general understanding is that you have questions about sort of what's next in the litigation and how long this might take. So the briefing is nearly complete in the case as a whole. The Attorney General's office sought and received an extension of time to file their own amicus brief on behalf of CAL FIRE and I believe the Board of Forestry. That deadline is the 19th. And then the petitioners will be able to provide probably an answer to that amicus brief within a week or two after it gets filed. And at that point, the briefing should be considered complete. And at that stage, typically what happens in the appellate court is it's assigned to one of the justices to be the lead justice. They will, do their research, read all the briefs, read the record, assign law clerks to research it. And then when they are ready to hear argument, they will notify the parties that they're ready. And so there's not a lot of control by the parties at this stage of what the timing of an ultimate decision is. But typically there will be, a notice, say 3 or 4 weeks out of the upcoming argument. And for now, and hopefully they'll continue it indefinitely in the future, there is public viewing available online of the First Appellate District's arguments. And so when I receive notice of that argument, I'm happy to share it with the board and anyone else who's interested in watching those. We would not be expected to participate. Our part is done after submitting the amicus brief. The court has our perspective and they don't need to hear anything further from us. So we wouldn't be expected to participate. Obviously we can watch. I don't expect that the timing, I don't think that an argument would occur or be invited probably for at least 3 to 6 months. It's a complex record. It's a big case. It's one that the justices presumably are going to try to be thoughtful about. And so I imagine they're going to need, at least the typical amount of time. So I wouldn't expect a decision before the end of next spring, and that would be maybe the earliest.
Bruce, any follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Sabrina. Then one other question: in the event of an adverse ruling, what's the game plan beyond this current effort?
Well, if either side is dissatisfied with the opinion when it finally issues, they have the right to petition the Court of Appeal for a rehearing of the decision. It's not typical for the Court of Appeal to completely reverse itself, but it may clarify its ruling in response to such a petition. They don't have to file one, but they could take the next step, which would be to file a petition for review with the California Supreme Court. And the California Supreme Court could decide to take the case if it decides that there's a conflict of law created by the decision or some other aspect of the decision is interesting or concerning to them. They have complete discretion about whether to take such civil cases, and they typically don't take more than maybe 1 or 2 CEQA cases per year. So it's kind of a long shot. Typically at the Court of Appeal, that is the final step, because most petitions for review at the Supreme Court are denied. So once there is a decision issued, the justices will decide whether or not to publish it. If it is not published, then it is binding only as to the parties to the lawsuit. So if it comes out adversely for the regents, then the remedy would likely be that they have to go back and redo some portion of their EIR, rescind their project approvals, and correct whatever flaw the Court of Appeal decides there is. If they decide to publish it, though, and this was the reason for our advocating to participate in the decision, then it could set important precedent for, you know, agencies across the state dealing with issues of adequate project description and fire fuel management in particular.
Okay, Bruce?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from board members to Sabrina or Ann? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to the public now. Anyone in the chambers wish to address this item? Online?
If there are any members of the public wishing to address item 9C, please raise your hand in the reactions. If you're joining us virtually, and for those joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. And sir, we do not have any hands for public comment.
Thank you. So I'll bring it back to the board for any final thoughts or comments. Yes, go ahead, Julie.
On 9C, Sabrina, I thought your work was excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. All right, no motion is required on this. We'll move to item 10. Any board member requests for future items? All right, very good. So we're going to adjourn now to the next meeting, which would be January 19th, and wish everyone happy holidays. So thank you all. Really good year.
Successful first public meeting.